Today's video is sponsored by Rise of Kingdoms. Camera recording. I didn't shut the door, so I'll be right back. I've got some weird controllers I want to talk to you guys about today, but for a little bit of different reasons than usual. The controllers in question are these right here. Now, you've probably seen a couple different variants of this style kind of controller for the Switch. The entire point of it is to be a replacement to using the Joy-Con sideways, normally for things like party games or if you want to have an easy controller to play on the go. But the whole reason why is because using the Joy-Con sideways, I don't know if you've ever actually tried, isn't actually the most comfortable experience out there. So companies make controllers like this to be a nice alternative. Now, when it comes to that specific purpose, this controller does a fine job. Really, the only thing major about it I can really complain about is how I don't like the face in the middle of it that stares up at me whenever I look down at the controller. But that's not what I want to focus on in today's video. What I want to talk about is this specific photo on the Amazon listing for this controller. That's right, they're advertising that you can use this controller not only as just a regular sideways Joy-Con replacement, but you could even use two of them together like a fully functional pair of Joy-Cons, which is completely ridiculous. Thankfully, not every game out there requires ridiculous controllers like this, like today's sponsor, Rise of Kingdoms. Segue nailed. Rise of Kingdoms is a free-to-play mobile game with millions of players worldwide. It has you building your own kingdom that you advance through various ages of technology, starting all the way back in the Stone Age. One really cool thing about it is that you can actually pick one of 11 different real-world civilizations to base your kingdom on. It affects the appearance of your buildings, some kinds of special units that you're able to get, and even gives you a starting hero rooted in that culture. And I gotta say, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the game. I always love collecting different kinds of heroes, and the fact that these are real-world historical ones they actually give little blurbs about is really neat. And I just love the cartoony art design that they use for all of them. I mean, I like the look of the game overall, but I love the hero designs. It just gives one more reason for me to want to try and collect as many of them as I can. While building up your kingdom and growing your armies, you can also form alliances with other players to go head-to-head against other ones, claiming territory, and the more land you claim, the more resources that everyone in the Alliance reaps. And in fact, there's even a special event going on right now called the Osiris League, where alliances are competing head-to-head round after round to get special in-game rewards. Make sure to check out the link down below in the description to start playing Rise of Kingdoms today, and use the code ALLYWITHME to get 500 gems for free. There's a few reasons why this is a completely ridiculous idea. I mean, just to begin with, the shape of the controller isn't exactly comfortable for holding sideways like this. I mean, I guess if maybe your hand was just the right size, you could maybe fit between the grip and then kind of have this claw grab, which would maybe work, but even then there's a lot of weird things going on, like having to reach for the right stick down on this one. That is just not comfortable. But an even bigger problem is the fact that you don't even have a full set of buttons to work with. These technically don't have proper shoulder buttons on a Joy-Con, so you're missing a lot of it. And because of that very reason, when I first ordered these, it really wasn't a thing you could use. I mean, because of the fact that it's missing those shoulder buttons, there was just no way to do proper controls in a lot of games. And it even made syncing the controller really difficult in the first place. Again, they advertise that you can use it this way sideways, but when you first set it up on the Switch, you actually have to kind of cheat the system a little bit. See, normally you would go into the Find Controller section and just hit the shoulder buttons to say, hey, I want to use these Joy-Con side by side. Not an option here because, again, no shoulder buttons. Instead, you would sync them both individually, then hit the home button on one to back out of the menu without actually properly finalizing how to connect to controllers, and the Switch just kind of gives up and lets you use them that way. However, in the time that has passed since when I first picked these controllers up and started messing with this idea, one very important change happened. Nintendo released their 10.0 software for the Switch, which among many things adds the ability to remap buttons on your Joy-Cons. And while these are not technically official Joy-Cons, they are designed to spoof them. So your Switch does read these as proper Joy-Cons, thus giving you the ability to remap buttons. So I was able to take the SL and SR buttons on the top here and make them now read as the proper shoulder buttons on a Switch controller, meaning that these are now completely functional. Now, when I say functional, I mean, yes, it technically works. Mostly, kind of. I still ran into some issues, but definitely as far as really using them in gameplay, yeah, I don't fully recommend it. I really wanted to actually give this a try and see if this is at all a thing you should ever attempt and try doing. And the answer I more or less came up with was no, definitely not. The remapping did allow me to get access to buttons I normally wouldn't be able to use with these controllers, except it didn't for one of them. The right-sided one worked perfectly fine. I was able to access the right shoulder buttons by using these ones instead. Red, easy. The left one, on the other hand, for whatever reason, while I could remap it to read as L and ZL, did not actually work in-game. I don't know if this is because of the fact that the left controller is kind of oddly read by the system as a right one normally, but it is read as a left one when you're using them side by side. It's odd how the system is reacting and reading this particular controller. So I think that it's a reason why it's having trouble figuring out how to actually remap the individual buttons. Now, like I said though, I did get at least half of them working. So I did spend some time playing a couple different games, including Legend of Zelda. That's just kind of my go-to test game because it lets me make use of a lot of different things. Obviously, these are not fully functional controllers because they don't have motion controls. They do actually have rumble, although it is extremely weak. I didn't actually realize it was there until I was really focusing and paying attention to see like, oh wait, does this rumble? And they do. It's just the lightest mini kind of shake. Of course, that's not the reason why using these in that sideways fashion is a problem. It's the fact that trying to hold and grip one of these sideways like this for a long period of time is just not comfortable. I was able to use the buttons that are on the top side of the controller okay, like the ABXYs here, the left stick on the left one. Using the right stick or the D-pad on the other one, or at least what's being used as a D-pad, was not a great experience. I will say one thing that did surprise me a little bit is I kinda actually liked having sideways buttons here. It's not the traditional grip where I'm gonna have something up top to hold on to, but if there was a dedicated controller that was this kind of wraparound design where, you know, I'm hitting buttons with my thumb up here and then just squeezing on the ones inside, it actually works okay. That part I was able to get adjusted to, and it worked out pretty well for some things, like having to aim and fire the bow, which I will say, it definitely wasn't the most intuitive experience. It did take some time to adjust, but when I spent the time on trying to use it that way, it actually became a pretty viable option. Of course, that alone does not balance out the overall experience of using these like regular Joy-Cons. Just with the way the bar shaping is really good if you're using it like a traditional sideways Joy-Con. This is great, but the way the grips just kind of dig into the sides of your palm as you're trying to hold this, and even then readjusting your grip to get access to lower buttons, it's just does not work. There can kind of be a grip design you make where you rest your hand in the middle like this and go a little lower than what you would naturally want to do, and that way you can at least reach everything. Mostly. It still takes a little bit of repositioning if I need to go to the very top or the very bottom. It's not something that you're going to be able to do under pressure a lot. It caused quite a few issues. Again, the whole reason why you would even look into buying something like this is because you want a replacement for when you're using Joy-Con sideways, which even then, I'm not a huge fan of small standalone controllers like this. I think you're better off buying grips that fit the regular Joy-Con because A, it's a lot cheaper than buying a whole new controller, and B, you still get all the features of a regular Joy-Con. But I just couldn't help but check this one out because of that specific photo, because they do straight up advertise that, hey, this is an adaptable controller that you can totally use this way if you want. And that is true. It will work that way with a little bit of workarounds and kind of doing things your Switch doesn't exactly want you to do, but it will work. You just shouldn't ever do that. Oh, right, and it does also commit one of the big sins for me with any kind of third-party Switch controller. It's micro USB instead of USB-C. The moral of the story with this video is if you ever want to use two Joy-Cons on your Switch, you should probably just use the regular Joy-Cons. If you are going out to buy some cheaper replacements, there are a lot of ones out there that will offer that purpose and work okay. Obviously, most of you out there were not going to look at this and go, that seems like a great idea. But again, just seeing it advertised, had to try it myself, and I can attest, don't do that. Thanks again to Rise of Kingdoms for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check out that link down below in the description to start playing it today, and I'll see you guys later.